Welcome everyone to Ben and Ryan Open Mic. We had a fun countdown timer. We're adding new stuff every week
It was
to
fun.
our shows. Yeah, it adds to like the drama. Like, okay, are we going to go live? So if you are on the live stream, please post a comment. Let us know where you're from. It looks like we have. We'll see how many people post up in here. If nothing else, it'll just be the four of us chit-chatting for 10, 15 minutes. We kind of modeled this after what happened at Ben's company, and from what he told me, this is similar to what happened at his company, where where it kind of started, and then it was him showing up. I think that's how the story goes, or very limited people showing up.
I always feel like that's my superpower. I just show up. Like I don't. There's a lot of
I thought you were
stuff
going to say
well.
my superpower is to get people not to show up.
Not to show up. It might be coincidentally true. I don't know.
So if anyone is watching this or the recording of this, I want to say happy birthday to Peter. Peter's joining us. He was a guest. He was a guest on the last show, and he's like, hey, you know what? I can be a regular on the live event. So I said, hey, come on board.
Regular on the live events. I think the way I put it to you was, I'll be that weird uncle that keeps showing up at the family events.
That's what it was. I knew there was a good comment in there. I'm going to post something here. Is it? Here we go. And so if you are on the line, you can post your comments. You can come join us. There's room for many. I think StreamYard's who little plug to StreamYard. They allow up to 10 people, I think, or something on this. So we'll see if let's just try and make it crowded. Let's like Brady Bunch it or something. We'll have like 9 of us. We'll all point to each other and stuff. So please join us on the line. While we're just chit chatting here, I'll throw out a couple of things that I know I've been playing around with. And maybe we'll do an official podcast about this, but I've been playing around with AI a bunch, and Ben knows from all of our shows that I'm all in with chat. I'm AI on AI. I'm all in on AI. So I need to I'm gonna hashtag AI on AI. I'm all in on artificial intelligence.
What have you been doing with it?
So I did upgrade my plan. So if anyone watched our Verizon accessibility podcast we just published yesterday, you will know that I don't like to wait for technology. Very early adopter, and when the Pro phone, the 16 Pro phone came out from Apple, it was too late. It was going to take too long to wait for Verizon to ship me one, so I just went to the store and got one. And so with the new features on ChatGPT, I'm like, I really like it. It's really kind of cool to have like a little operator do my web tasks for me. So I'm going to upgrade from my $20 to the $200 a month plan.
Nice.
So the owners of X,
it's fine.
The owners of Expedite don't know this yet. They have not received the bill.
It's on the company card.
So that for the $20 a month, I'm like, I got that one. The $200 a month, I may have to pass it out to the company. Like, hey, you guys, I'm really doing a lot of company stuff for the $200 plan. The $20 one is some of my personal stuff, but yeah, so I'll kind of do the whole journey on the $20 plan. I would use it for and I've talked about this on the shows before, where like recipes. Like my wife will ask me, hey, what do you want for dinner this week? And I have no idea. I'm like I don't know, pick some of the stuff you did before. So I'll Rolodex in my head. I mean, what has she made before that was good? And I'm like, I can't give you any fresh ideas. So I created a custom GPT that would give me, I fed into it our preferences for each of the kids in the family and the parents, and it outputs ideas for me. So if I said I need 20 lunch ideas or breakfast or dinner or snacks or whatever, it can give me ideas. And now when she asks me, I just say, hey, Chatty, give me 20 ideas for dinner, and then I just read them off to her. And she'll go find recipes and stuff, but she just wants inspiration. So that was on some of my personal stuff on the $20 plan. And from a marketing standpoint, from a professional piece on that, I used it to do like brainstorming all the time. I'll do it for I'll take a transcript from our podcast and I'll drop it in there and I'll have it summarize it. And I've even done the custom GPTs where I say, hey, here's the format that I want for the output results. And that way I'm getting the same stuff every time. It's been great for that. Then I'll proof it and I'll look for things that are wrong or that I don't want to have that in the summary or something like that. Then so I do that for a lot of different things. And then but the trick is to create the custom GPT, so you're not, because I wanted to do repeatable tasks. That's the whole idea for a lot of the stuff. So I create custom GPTs for repeatable tasks. I also use it for brainstorming. I've done some iterative thoughts with Ben on our live events, where you kind of throw something out there, it throws something back, and you're like, how about this? And you question it, and you go back and forth, and have it give you more detailed information. Or I think we even had it. It was comparing some technologies out there. So we asked, okay, grab 3 of the competitors and include it, and make a table of the comparisons. And so it can do stuff like that, which is kind of gets you started on things, and then you can kind of dive into deeper thoughts when you kind of want to, and just do your normal Googling at that point. So that was the normal plan I had, or the I don't even know what they call it, the Plus, I think. Then I upgraded to Pro this week because the operator looks really cool. And
is operator? What is that exactly? Is that the thing that'll go do stuff for you in the background?
So I'll summon my inner Ben. So for those listening,
thank you.
For those listening,
I mean, I know what an operator is, obviously, but for the less educated.
So operator, you can have it. Basically, is the AI that controls a web browser, and it'll go and do different things for you. And realize it's an AI controlling the web browser, and it can. So that's a limitation. So it's not like it can do any task on a computer.
And it's like a visual, like you actually see a little web browser pop up and. Oh yeah,
you see the browser, and so I said, hey, let me have you check our whole. I'm trying to figure out what secrets I don't want to give away on our to the 3 people watching.
Hey mom,
let me just rephrase it. So you could create an operator and tell it to walk through a login session on this website, and you could have computer AI do user testing on your website.
So that is exactly where I was going with this. So I had to log into our website, like, hey, check the links, look for errors, and check forms and stuff. But also like, hey, give me your thoughts on the site. Like, here's different personas that we use, and give me an analysis of each of our pages and how it relates back to those buyer personas. And that's helped me kind of understand stuff. But yeah, I just started today trying to do the testing on the site. Say, hey, now check the forms, make sure those work. Check and you could probably have it, because it's AI. It can understand stuff where you don't have to just give it tests.
Yeah.
You can have it go in there. From what they say, at least on login screens, it comes up and you can get in there. You can type in your login, and it doesn't record what you're typing in. Mm-hmm. Or that's what they say.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
There's a whole other ChatGPT database of all the
exactly
what they're relearning with the data. When you use that operator, how efficient would you say the instruction set is? Does it have problems interpreting the sites you're having it go to and navigating, or would you say that's been pretty fluid?
Sometimes I'll give it like a list of things, a list of pages or things I kind of want it to do research on or do actions against. And if that list exceeds 150, I found it starts to freak out and lose its way kind of in the middle somewhere. But if you keep it in that 100 to 150 range, then it works pretty good. So let's say something out there that has a bunch of stuff that you may have. If we had like okay, look, hey, here are some companies that we want to know more about. Then if I gave it a list more than that, then it couldn't handle that. Or if I said, hey, here's a list of all the web pages that we have, go hit up all of those. And if that was more than 150, it would freak out. Now you can have it where it'll just click on all the links in the footer. And so I can just say, hey, go to our website, click on every link in our footer, and give me an analysis of each of the pages against these type of buyer personas. And that can be the extent of my prompt. And it goes and it does that. Mark, welcome, by the way.
It's a historic.
Hello.
I've tried to. Hey, Mark. So historically, I've tried to do, what they call like end-to-end testing using tools like Cypress or Playwright and coding certain things. But this sounds very intriguing that usually those things fall apart because as you try to add more pages and stuff like that, it gets more and more cumbersome to keep up with these things. But if you could theoretically create an operator to do certain steps and then even call it through a CI/CD pipeline and get the results, that would be very cool. I have to play with it myself just to see if in a manual ad hoc mode it does what it does, and then if you could launch it and get the results back, that would be pretty cool.
Or have it say, hey, here's my site, create my unit tests for me. I think that's one of the big things that people have been talking about from an AI for developers is creating those unit tests.
Yep.
I was just on a local meetup, and I think the company was Kodo. Yeah, QODO. And they seem to have some VS Code plugin that will use AI to create unit tests for you.
Interesting. Yeah, to piggyback off your point a little bit too, Peter, I think it'd be interesting to see, if you have an existing pipeline today that already does some form of acceptance testing, if you could replicate that in an operator and then see what the different results are between the two. If they come up with the same outcome, is it, inconsistent results, or even just getting a non-biased, what would a user see? You could have AI play that role, especially if you can attach that into a pipeline. So that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, because this is coming about it without knowledge of the source code.
Yeah.
And so, but some of these other ones, when you get knowledge of the source code, it can come up with better testing. Or if you give it a description of what's the ones I've seen that are better, that have access to the source code, also you can give it access to the specs, and it can test against the basic description of specs. But I mean, you could, as Dakota said, do all of these and just kind of see what the outcomes are.
For years, I've heard of something called fuzz testing, and I've never quite understood the basics of it. I think kind of the philosophy.
Is that when you stick your finger in your belly button to look for lint?
No, it's, you throw your cat on your keyboard, Ryan.
I think it's actually more akin to what Mark is talking about, where it's you put garbage into like every single field, and the garbage is over a certain universe of possible inputs. And it's like the joke, what is it, like a QA tester walks into a bar and orders 0 drinks, 999 drinks, Smith, credit card numbers. I think fuzz testing is like that. And I guess historically there have been automated tools that do things like that. But I wonder if this is something that AI might be not better suited for, is maybe not the right word, but alternatively suited for, just because of the way it deals with language.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I love the punchline to the joke that you were just saying, by the way, Ben, is then someone else walks in the bar and asks where the bathroom is, and the server melts down.
Yeah.
The unexpected input is always what completely, burns the server down. And that's where AI potentially, if it's written right, us as testers, we're human, right? We fall into patterns. That's what we do. Whereas AI doesn't have that. You could tell it to just randomly access everything across the entire site and click things that aren't even buttons, because it could do it instantaneously, right? And maybe you could find some things that users might not immediately find, right?
The mental hurdle for me with all the AI stuff is that it feels like you get out of it what you put into it. And I think so much of my mentality is everyone's telling me how amazing and magical this stuff is, and I feel like I should just be able to click a button and get all the value. and it sounds very much like that's not even close to being the case. And like it's like the people
Geigo, man, it's Geigo. You can't escape Geigo.
say this again.
Geigo, garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in. Well, it's like when people are like, oh, I can never leave Vim because I've spent the last 7 years configuring my, plugins and editor stuff. And it feels very much like the AI is that. It's you have to spend actually quite a bit of time, not only just understanding the tools, but understanding the prompts and creating the custom stuff and the constraints and all the other additional extensions that the different tools offer to help make things more predictable. And it's just a very different story,
So I'll throw something out here from the audience here.
Yeah.
Misha, Windsurf Editor is very good with AI based on visual code. Okay. So something else.
This is like a Cursor AI alternative. I think is the same.
Is that what it is?
I think you're right, Ben. Yeah. And I was about to tell a little story about Cursor. Actually, speaking of Cursor, we just had a meetup the other night about cybersecurity, and during it, the speaker kind of went off on a tangent, talked about something he had done recently, which was writing a game in Cursor. He just wanted to see if he could do it. He wanted to make like a little Zelda clone or something like that. And at first, when he started telling, he said, "Oh yeah, I just prompted it and it wrote the game." And he showed us the game, and I was like, "Wow, it's amazing!" Right? The little character was running around. There were buildings, there was like trees, and it was randomly generated maps. And then he showed us his prompting, and it was 3 days of going back and forth and going like, "No, the tree doesn't explode. Don't do that. Like now the guy doesn't move. Now the trees are upside like." So to Ben's point, it's not fire and forget. It's not you click a button and it's magical yet.
Yeah.
But the difference between and one thing this guy wanted to be very specific about was he didn't write a single line of code. He did every single thing through prompting. That was his goal. The guy's a programmer. He's a developer. He could have if he wanted to, but he wanted to see, can I prompt this and make a playable game? Yeah, playable. Right? You can't really do anything in it. But the difference between that and think about 5 years ago, like Ben, if you wanted to build a game 5 years ago, what did you have to do?
I feel like I'd have to go back to school and learn how to build games.
You'd have to code though, right? You have to get in the weeds and to your point,
absolutely.
Learn how to build a game engine and maintain state and all this stuff. And this just did it. So the difference between where we were and where we are is vast. And so theoretically, if that vector continues, then where we'll be in 3 to 5 years, maybe where you're talking about, where you can just say, build me a game like Zelda, and then it'll come back and say, well, what should be different about it? Or do you just want, like, you'll actually have these conversations with these models and get back usable stuff, which could mean testing, it could mean security, it could mean application development.
So
right?
I was talking to our ERP company about ideas for AI, and one of the things I thought was, okay, most of the people who are running the ERPs they're not developers. They're business owners. There's people in sales, and so they may want a customization of some kind, but they don't want to go to someone to code. So if they could just click on the little AI prompt, hey, on this screen I want it to look like this, and if I click on this button I want it to do this, and then it just says, okay, cool, I created the code behind the scenes. And let's say it's not exactly what you want it to do, but maybe you have some junior guy who couldn't start the code, but if he sees the stuff and he's like, oh yeah, here's the problem, let me just fix this little tiny thing. And now all of a sudden you can kind of do these things faster and have much more of this, really the no code revolution would be this. I think that's what also scares a lot of developers when they're looking at this is like, hey, is this going to take away some of the bread and butter stuff that it's already taking away from like content writers? I mean,
yeah, probably, but maybe it should be, right? I mean, which one? Who among us still writes our own authentication models? Not me.
I mean, it's like I can send a magic link to myself, or I just have a user table. It's not. But like, I wouldn't. I would lean on some other tool for like a SAML authentication, probably.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like we there's tooling already in place that will do it better than I could ever do it. And in some ways this is similar, right? None of us code in Notepad. We coded an IDE that has a lot of tooling built into it, right? So it's an evolution potentially of that. But I worry about people who are very junior either getting pushed out of the industry and not being able to find jobs, or not even starting. That's actually a bigger fear that I have. Is a lot of like students come to me at my meetups and say, should I just not even bother? Right? Should I just not be a programmer because it sounds like programmers won't be around anymore, which is not true, I think, but it's a valid fear, right? Like, how can you get a job when AI is doing all of the easy stuff for you? I don't know.
Go ahead.
I was going to say one way I look at this is that the whole AI generated code. I mean, there's a lot of talk around, putting developers out of business or out of their job or whatever. But I look at it as nothing more than just a new mechanism for us to be able to communicate with the underlying silicon. From the beginning of time, we've had programming languages that we as humans have had to learn in order to tell the computer to do something. Initially, it was a lot of switches that we turned into ones and zeros. Then we got to hex code, and then we got to BASIC, and then that translated into something else. But we've all, as programmers, as developers of an end result, had to learn some mechanism in order to tell the computer what to do for us. I view this as nothing but that. There will be definitely a generation of application developers or coders or whatever that all they know is how to prompt this thing.
Yeah.
And this prompting is going to get better and better as it goes along, I think. But just like we don't have a single programming language out there, there's still room for the Adas of the world, and the COBOL programs that were written in the 50s are still running in some back room of some governmental office somewhere. None of these things are going to go away in our lifetime, but it will probably allow other people that probably had no way of coming in. I mean, most of us are CFML developers. When I started with CFML and coding and everything, we had secretaries learning how to code because Cold Fusion was just so easy and so approachable. This is nothing more than that, but just hyped up exponentially.
So let me ask you guys a question, because I had a really interesting conversation with someone about this. And to your point, Peter, it actually followed along with a lot of what you were saying. But essentially what this person's argument was that, we have been on an evolutionary journey of abstraction. We abstracted away ones and zeros. We abstracted away the base languages. We abstract. Like Cold Fusion is an abstraction on top of Java, right? Which is itself in and of itself an abstraction on top of the JVM, right? So what happens when we abstract to a level where the underlying languages no longer matter? Imagine a world where you ask the computer program to do a thing, and instead of compiling down to Java or to a DLL or whatever it does, it simply picks the best underlying language for the task, and you never have to bother and know about it. What do you guys think about that?
Okay, so the first thing that pops to my mind when you're talking about that, and I don't know why this popped in my mind, but I think about a write-ahead ledger, like in a database where it's like append only, like an append only log in a database, where I'm going somewhere with this thought, where if you want to say get that data back into another database, you could just replay all of the things that have happened, and now you have a manifestation of that data, a materialization of that data. And so if the underlying language wasn't the thing that you had to worry about, but you still have to have some sense of a quote unquote source control. So then what becomes the thing that you're versioning? Is it the prompts? And if it's the prompts, then how do I replay this series of prompts in another machine to recreate this code? And is that actually predictable? Will the same prompts replayed over time as the underlying models have changed actually result in the same code? And I think that's a really difficult problem to think about.
Yeah.
That to me is like one of the biggest issues here, is the predictability and the repeatability of any of this stuff. And I think you actually, Mark, called me out, I don't know, on Facebook about somewhere where I was playing around with DALL-E.
Call you out.
Someone, I was like, I keep telling DALL-E not to change random stuff in the image, and you were like, it's diffusion. That's how it works.
Diffusion, that's how it works. Yeah. Someone
Well,
else
like,
actually
I don't want
mentioned
random.
that, but yeah.
Mhm.
But let me flip that on its head. Does it matter that it writes the same code? Like maybe over time the underlying language gains new features, or one of the other languages does a thing better. Wouldn't it be better for the application to do things more like predictably or more efficiently or faster or more securely? Like, does it really matter which language, like in terms of repeatability, as long as the output is good for the user?
I think the editing is where the languages have to get better at. Where if you have, hey, this code, and I want it to do this, because it may then rewrite the entire thing in a different language. Then if you give it carte blanche to do anything, and
Right.
the next person coming along is like, okay, well, that actually is not efficient because now the first task is slow. You weren't considering the first task, and you were just taking on the next prompt. So there's and I say 10 years is in the future for a lot of this stuff, but we're going to blink and then it'll be 10 years in the future. I mean, you can ask my 13-year-old. She blinked and she was 13.
So put yourself in the quote unquote user's perspective. Our users of our applications don't care that something's written in Cold Fusion or Java or C or Pascal or anything else. They just want a particular functionality, and if you give it to them, they're happy. And right now, because we're in that transitionary period, we as developers, as experts in particular languages, care how this thing is translating to our particular language of choice.
Yeah.
But if we fast forward, Mark, to the point where the silicon itself understands the output of the AI engine, and it doesn't have to go through an intermediary step. Like right now, we write Cold Fusion, that gets transcompiled into the bytecode, which gets run in another extracted environment. What if this AI engine can feed that chip that is going to come, 15 years from now automatically? We don't care at that point what this thing is doing, as long as we get the results back, as long as we get the predictability. If I need to learn this new language of choice, the language is going to be those prompts. Maybe these prompts evolve. Maybe these prompts become a source code language in and of itself, where we can sit, like right now, I could go and grab a mouse and a browser and click on my web page, kind of what we were talking about earlier, or I can prompt a browser to do that through a tool called Cypress, where you give it particular things. Open up this page, find this particular element on the page, do this thing to it, whether it's click it, whether it's, swipe it or whatever, wait for the result to appear. That's the type of stage that I think we are with AI, that, there's going to be some sort of a language to make this thing do what we want it to do. That language is so rudimentary right now. And the back-end engine is constantly changing with all these different models of engines, language models and stuff like that. So, but perceivably, we could get to a point where this thing starts stabilizing, and then we can start getting the tooling that we as application developers, application engineers want to see, to be able to get predictable results. So like, client one asks me for something, I produce it for them. Client two asks me for the same thing. I know how to do that thing. I don't have to relearn. Oh, this is the magic set of prompts that I did on this particular day to try and get that thing again.
So
I'm excited about this, but it puts me out.
What do we? So what do we tell the junior developers? So if you're a 22-year-old about ready to graduate from college, what do we tell them? That, hey, in 15 years, we're going to be prompt engineers?
You want to know what I tell them? I tell them go get really, really good at math. Go make sure that you study vector algebra, you understand calculus, you understand statistics, probability theory, because at some point in the future, these things, I mean, maybe they'll start writing themselves. It's very unlikely, right? They're really good at doing things that have done before. They're not really good at doing new, novel, completely new things. We will need people to help design the way that these things work in a more efficient, effective, even power efficient way. It shouldn't matter what you program in, but the underlying knowledge and understanding of how generative AI and other forms of AI work is baseline. If you know that, you'll have a job in 10 years, I think. Or we'll all be dead from an asteroid strike in 7, but whatever.
The thing that I don't quite understand, that I hear a lot in various podcast interviews, is people saying or relaying this notion that companies no longer want to hire or are hiring much fewer junior engineers because it's so much easier for, quote unquote, so much easier for people to be productive. But I hear that and I think to myself, like, I'm not sitting around during the day like looking for things to do. I already have too much complicated stuff to do. Are you telling me now that I also have to do the work that a junior engineer might be doing just because I can do some other stuff a little faster? I don't understand. Like, there's a disconnect for me between this idea that there's junior level work and senior level people.
I would love to actually get like hard, concrete examples of that, because I hear the same stories you do, Ben. I hear about how companies no longer need, junior or even mid developers. They have their business analysts do it all with low code, no code AI stuff. Until which company's doing that? I want to know about this company because it sounds like I should go work for them because I could like hang out by the beach. That'd be great. I can do that in my sleep.
Well, I will tell you, because I'm in the ERP space.
Yeah.
I do see a lot of stuff going to low code, no code that would have previously been a developer doing. So like UI design, you may have had to go to like your forms to do something, and nowadays you can do it all on screen. You can move fields around. You can do work. You can drag and drop. You can do workflows. So you can do, hey, if I click here, I want this to happen, or I want to hide this stuff. So some of that workflow navigation on a UI side of things is being
none of that's
replaced.
New, Ryan.
Right,
None of that's
but
new.
I'm saying
that 10 years ago. Yeah.
But these are the like the developer tasks that are going away, and some of this is just getting more advanced and more advanced, and they're taking on more of that low code, no code stuff. You're seeing that a lot more out there. So it could be where, I mean, more of these tasks become even low code, where a non-developer can do it, or they could just kind of type in to this thing, hey, my workflow engine, I want this to happen, and now it's and maybe the first step is more just drag and drop of things. And so you may have like a series of things you can just kind of, hey, these common things are all pre-programmed, kind of like a framework for non-developers, and kind of just drop in what they want.
Which is a great transition to something I'd love to talk to you guys about: agents. Because what you're talking about, those individual workflow tasks could be described as agents, right? Individual agents that do particular things for you and get things done. But I keep hearing this term agentic programming, agentic design, right? Agentic architecture. What do you guys think about that? Where's the room? I mean, maybe that's what juniors are going to be building. They're going to be building agents, but what do you guys think about that?
I don't really know anything about it, other than so many of the examples that I keep hearing about seem like the things I do so infrequently. Like, oh, this can go reserve me a table at a restaurant. I'm like, all right, yeah, I could have an agent do that, or I could do it like the 2 times a year I actually reserve a table at a restaurant.
You got to eat out more, Ben.
I know.
Treat yourself.
I don't know. I feel like I don't do enough stuff during the day that has a lot of variability, but maybe that's a constraint of not having agents.
From an AI perspective, I've heard it where you're going to give it more specification on something, So your general purpose AI may do something, but then hey, if you wanted to go do something else, it's going to call an agent. So I heard someone talking about like a Starbucks example. So the ChatGPT may have, hey, look, I can converse as a Starbucks employee or as an employee, but I may not have Starbucks lingo pre-programmed to me. So you may call the Starbucks agent to say, hey, now grab me Starbucks lingo. So now I can plug in that agent to my system, and now it has Starbucks lingo. And now you may want to say, hey, you know what? I have a cashier. Let me now plug in a cashier to this. So now it's gotten more specific because I've plugged in this. But maybe you want to plug in, okay, now I want to plug in my manager. So I have a manager one I can plug into it. And so if it wants to know how to talk like a manager, it may call a manager agent. So it gets the normal LLM response, and it says, okay, hey, now let me vet this against what a manager would say. And you have all these rules and stuff for managers, and it calls out and says, oh, you know what, you're right there, but I want to change some stuff. So it gives feedback to the general LLM, and then it corrects itself with like all the chain of thought that's happening now, and then it outputs a final result based on all the agents that it's passed through.
I didn't really understand any of that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the examples that I've heard are much more in line with like Ben, and they feel a lot like having a bunch of assistants. I think agent and assistant could be like for example, we're doing the summit on the East Coast, so all I'm doing is getting my airports and my hotels and my cars and all of this stupid stuff, and I have to like dig through our terrible UI. Sorry, this is being recorded. I mean, our extremely great AI. Thank you
well
for
thought
Adobe
through
for providing
AI.
that through them.
Yeah.
But if there was an agent that I could just say, please go look at my calendar, go book me flights that I will like based on my previous things. Go get some hotels for me, book whatever, maybe a dinner on some of the nights, and it goes to the individual agents that do that. So it's an agent talking to agents and gets it all done for me. It has my credit card information. It knows to use my Adobe credit card. That's the agentic workflows that I'm hearing. But you're right, Ben. How often do I do that?
I also just feel like not having the human in the loop makes me so nervous. You could book a flight to a conference, and Adobe says somewhere behind the scenes, oh, because this is a corporate credit card, choose the least expensive flight, no matter how quote unquote painful it is. And now you're doing a layover in Mexico and then Florida and then Atlanta so you can get back to Denver. And you're like, oh, that sucks. I would have definitely. It's like I would have out of pocket paid you the extra $100 to just go directly from California to Colorado.
It's funny you say that, because those rules are in my UI, and that's part of the fight. But AI is good at following rules, right? Like it would just have to be, the company would have to make sure that it wasn't trying to be as cheap as possible, but they could already be. I mean, they already do that to me. I can't like book the extra leg space thing because I'm not a director, or like those silly rules. Like you have to be in the air for a certain amount of time before you're allowed to have Wi-Fi.
You have to be at least this important to be comfortable.
Right? Clearly, I'm not. But
what about something like in the hosting space? And maybe this is so much of the AI stuff feels so fuzzy to me. But hosting is very concrete. And if I wanted, would it make sense to have an agent do something like install the latest Cold Fusion security patch? Or is that like, no, now you're dealing with all kinds of different operating systems and different web apps that sit in front of that and connectors that have to be upgraded. And you're like, if any one of those things doesn't make sense, or like the agent doesn't quite have the right information, like your site just doesn't come back up maybe. And like, that doesn't seem good. I mean, even right now, so I'm on a hosting provider that in theory, you can go into the dashboard and just click and say, apply patch. Literally has not worked for me in 15 years, and every time I reach out to support provider,
you're not with Xbyte, right?
Well, no, not Xbyte. And I reached out and I said, sorry, I hate opening support tickets for this, but I just don't know how to do it through the interface. And they said, oh, well, you've been a customer for like 15 years. You probably changed something in the configuration 13 years ago, and now it's like just wrong enough that we don't know how to do it automatically.
Blame the victim.
Wait, you know,
I
and
don't feel like I
just-
know who this host is, Ben. I'm gonna say a word
know,
though.
I'm just saying, like, you know, something where the correctness of the output is a requirement. That's where it seems like there's a big disconnect between the AI world and the non-AI world.
And there's, you know,
think
what's the output danger too, right? Is it if it's a security patch that doesn't get put in, that's a big deal, right? Maybe you want a human in that loop, but maybe the AI is faster and better at it than some humans. I don't know.
Dakota, would we use an AI to do any of this, or do we? Or I guess we do. Do we do? We're not going to say it. So
Code is literally an AI.
Aspects of patching that can be automated without AI that you know make it seamless enough today. If I go back to Ben's earlier thought, you know, what first comes to mind for me when integrating any kind of AI into any server side process, especially at the infrastructure layer, it has to be context aware. So it has to know that it's, you know, performing an update on a server that has 300 sites, and those 300 sites have to load in the same way. So I think it always comes back to context and really just the prompt in general. You know, what are you really asking the AI to do? Update Cold Fusion, or update Cold Fusion and verify all the sites are working and verify the database is connecting. So really just, you know, I think it comes back down to context. I think at the human layer today, we have a lot of that context that AI doesn't necessarily have. And it makes it, you know, I think it makes it, at least in the short term, more effective for that human element to say, hey, I'm going to click the button and I know the output that I want. But I could easily see, you know, AI and taking that over in the future too. So,
I mean, if it's running your unit tests, then
well, yeah, it
And-
comes, unit tests, if you have it all, you know, very well defined. I think the other aspect, at least from a hosting perspective, is, you know, to Ben's point, that one button may have worked on 90% of the servers, and you have 10% of the servers that have different changes or different considerations, and it will never work. You know, would the same be true for AI? Maybe in the beginning, yes, but I could see it certainly replacing things over time. So.
I almost feel like, you know, the meme, it seems like it's been a little bit popular, like, show me something without showing me something, like, show me you love cantaloupes without telling me you love cantaloupes. And it's, you know, like picture of a chipmunk with 14 cantaloupes in its cheeks or something. I feel like we need something akin to that in the AI world. Like, show me that AI has revolutionized your world without telling me it has. Like, what is the number that you can show me, whether it's, I don't know, like number of customer support tickets decreased in a month, or number of tickets shipped in a month, or, you know, increased number of customers. Like, I'm a little tired of hearing the, like, oh, I just described this, create me a task management system, and I clicked a button and I had a task management system. Like, the 0 to 1, I think is fun, but it's not representative of, I think, like 98% of the work that we actually do. Like, you know, if you could go to the people who develop the Cold Fusion language and be like, is AI helping you add features to the actual syntax in a way that is backwards compatible through 20 years of releases and takes into account all the JVM flags and all the unit tests, and is modular in the way that we're trying to make it more modular? Like give me numbers that then tells me that the AI is actually doing something very helpful, and not just the you know, fancy demo stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to exactly how we're using AI right now in our development of Cold Fusion. We are using things like Copilot to help us code faster, but not create new things. So it helps us, for example, when we have certain patterns, to be able to write that code a little bit faster. It understands what our Java looks like right now and how we've written it in the past. And then also it helps us write things like tests, because it can see what the things are doing. We can prompt it to say, please, you know, this is what is expected out of this. Please write me the test. And it's not like our devs couldn't write that, but instead of it taking 5 minutes, it takes 1. right? And then they verify it. So it takes half the time to write a test. That means we have more tests. Quality output increases over time. But yeah, we're not asking it to like, please write us all the code necessary to integrate MS Graph into. No.
Right. And then please also go negotiate licensing contracts with whatever libraries you're pulling in.
Right. None of that happens, believe me. No, we do a lot of that, unfortunately. But yeah, no, it's I think this idea that it's a tool needs to be spoken more loudly. It's not necessary. It's never a 0-to-1 solution. Like someone would have to really convince me that they do everything 100%, 0 to 100, with no other requirements in there. I mean, at that point, we're talking about the singularity, and we may as well all lay down and wait for the atom bombs to land on us, right? That never happens. But even if it was 20%, I mean, Ben, what would you do to have 20% less work?
I mean, it would be great, and I think that's. I would love that,
Awesome.
and I think maybe my guttural pushback is always just the not the gaslighting, but the hyperbole of every statement about AI feels
Marketing.
It feels like it's like no one has to be responsible for the things that they say anymore. Like if you tell me like developers won't have jobs unless they can master AI in 5 years, I'm like, all right. And if that doesn't happen, can you get fired for saying that? Like, where's the actual concern about saying something that's not true?
They've moved on to the next company.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you from a marketer's perspective, it's revolutionized what we do. Because and it's not the advanced tasks, it's the easy tasks. So for our podcast, Ben, instead of me listening to it and taking all the notes about the outline, it's for me to be able to two pieces of that. I go to an AI to create a transcript, and then I take that AI created transcript and put it to another AI agent, which then creates the summary for me. So I'm able to, within a couple minutes, put out a summary instead of list and then I'll take that summary and I will have read it over and I'll listen to the podcast in the car because I actually have a commute, and then I'm able to kind of just validate. Okay, hey, yeah, these are the things that it did. I don't have to be at a desk listening to it, so I can optimize my time for that. For just creating stuff, having somebody to be able to kind of just get you over that writer's block to kind of create the first pass. It could be 50% right. So a lot of things I'll have it create something. I'm like, and then I'll go back and forth with it, saying iterate through it, and then I take my version of that, pass it to really smart people. Dakota's one of our really smart people here at XByte, and have them proof it. Say, hey, this is what I wrote. Remember, you guys are super technical. I'm growing, but not you were close to you guys. So I have them proof it, and then I take their proofs and I incorporate them. At this point, I'm doing the editing. I don't go back to the AI, but it saved me, let's say, a half an hour of doing that first draft. And now I can say, hey, and so the ability to kind of create more stuff, as long as you have the experts and the humans to then do the next edits, it's definitely cut out. Like, again, it's not 1 minute, but instead of being an hour for a task, it may be only a half hour for a task now. So it's able to,
which is not trivial, to be
no,
clear.
Yeah, it's awesome.
True.
But it's not I get more time now. Hey, look, my day's done in 4 hours. But hey, look, I can produce more output, or our team can produce more because of that. And so that and as a non-coder, I had the owner of the company say, hey, can we do this in Excel? And I'm like, there's got to be a way. So just throw it out there, and it can tell you the Excel formula, or it wrote VBA code, which I then just dropped into Excel, because no one likes to write VBA code. So drop that into Excel, and it because no one knows Excel functions, like you feel like VBA Excel functions. And I'm like, perfect, there you go. Here's a non I mean, I'm a programmer light, I guess, but it could produce stuff that could kind of do that without us having to go to, unfortunately, having to go to a developer. And the developer would be like, "Thank you for not having me write VBA code. That's phenomenal." or have to write some interface to kind of take an Excel file, manipulate it out, and then spit an Excel file back out. Which is we also do. We have developers who do that also, who manipulate Excel for us. But those are some of the things we've said. Okay, look, now we can take some tasks off of annoyances that would have gone to a developer to kind of do. Or from a graphics perspective, if I'm writing a blog post or writing a LinkedIn post, I know LinkedIn posts, if they don't have some form of image, no one looks at them anymore.
Yep.
So I will use some AI to create those images.
Mm-hmm.
But those are for things that because I'm posting often, I need to create stuff. I will use it for that. And I've told our graphics designer, I'm like, hey, I'm using AI for that. He's like, thank you, because it'd be annoying for me to have to do these LinkedIn images for you every day. Like I would much rather create like the visuals going on the overall website, or create new website looks and feels, and be looking at that sort of things, or any of our brochures we come up with, or our backdrops for shows, and kind of do more things that require creativeness. We're doing like cups and stuff, and creating and things that take an imagination, and they're being more widely used. They said, perfect, I will focus on that. You use your AI for your LinkedIn posts. And so it's been able to allow me not to have to go to other people for stuff they don't like doing anyway.
Yeah,
I think that's what I would love to see more of. Most of the hype around AI is the 0 to 1. You got nothing, you give it this magic prompt, and this is what you get. And most of us look at that and say, yeah, but that's nowhere near a finished product. I'm not going to be able to use that. But I would love to see more of these workflow types of things where people have been able to inject some sort of an AI, prompt in solving something. I mean, what I heard from you right now is, yeah, I have a lot of ideas of short videos I want to create, or podcasts I want to do and stuff like that. And it never goes anywhere because I'm like, okay, yeah, I have to write the script for what I'm going to do the video for. Then I got to sit down and capture the video. Then I got to maybe voice over it. Then I got to the imaging, splice it up and marketing it. And a lot of those things you can find tools. Or using StreamYard. You can find tools to help you along the way, but you still need to know what to do with the next level to be quote unquote successful. And that's the type of stuff I would love to see more of. Is like,
so I'll give you a real world example that Dakota and I do. And I'm trying to think if I'm allowed to. Sure, we're not giving away any little secrets. So
it's just us.
Yeah,
right.
There's
no
like
one else here.
I can see the numbers. There's 2 other people watching. So, but so Dakota, like technical people, if I'm like, hey Dakota, I want to have you do a presentation. So can you create a PowerPoint presentation? He's like, really? I got so many other things to be doing right now. You want me to create a PowerPoint presentation for this? How about we do like one a year? I'm like, no, we need to do like one a month. So I'm like, Dakota, can you give me a half an hour and I'll record this and you walk me through what you want me to do. So this is honestly, this is real world workflow for us. We sit down, I interview him for a half an hour. He talks to me about what about the topic and gives me all the details, everything like that. I use AI to create a transcript from that, drop it into another agent to kind of is already pre-programmed to create bullets for slides. I have it go out to the web and find backup data. So it's not just us saying stuff. It's okay now. So then we can do notations on our presentations. And so I take that. It doesn't actually create the PowerPoint, but it has my bullets for me. I then drop that into PowerPoint, make it look pretty. Because I'm like, I can do the presentation side of things, but I want someone to organize the data for me to save me that step. And so that allows us to now Dakota can give me just the gist of it in a half an hour. I can have AI give me the general flow of things and go out and do all the research and find me real citations of other people saying the same stuff. And now we can create something in an hour or an hour and a half that would have otherwise taken 4 or 5.
That's a
I
cool
mean,
use
that sounds
case.
great. Honestly,
It's powerful. I mean, Ben, I use AI for my evangelism stuff too, by the way. And I'm a like unlike Ryan has graphic designers. Like I've been a Photoshop expert for well over a decade. I used to teach Photoshop. I still use AI to create my LinkedIn stuff because ain't nobody got time for that.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I
To be
could.
clear, I'm not like anti AI. I use
Oh, no.
ChatGPT and I just
But
I
these are examples of where we're using it to actually like
Yeah.
impact our lives and our works, our work day in a positive manner, and save time. And I can't really. I was trying to think, like Ryan. I'm like, can I talk about this? There's actually a feature coming out. Let's see, how can I put this without getting fired? There's a feature coming out in a product available from Adobe, which is not Cold Fusion, which is going to use AI to vastly reduce the time to generate things like blogs and social media posts from videos. Can't say where it exists or where it's coming from. It's about to go to public beta in like a week or so. I've gotten to use it, and it is magic.
Will it be in my Creative Suite subscription? That's all I need to know.
No, it won't.
Wow.
No, I'm sorry. It's not. No, I don't. Come on, Peter. You think I hang with the cool kids? Come on. They don't answer my phone.
Well, let me
I'm on the
let me
island
throw
of misfit toys over here.
let me throw this
No,
out there.
it won't it won't be in that. But yeah, it was something. This friend of mine who works at Adobe like brought me in to test out, and I'm jaded, man. Like I've seen a lot of crazy stuff in my time, and when he showed me the way that they had set this up, I was like, no way. When can I get it? Give me the keys. I want to play with this because it has the potential for me to, triple my output on some of my stuff. Like it will allow me to do things that I can't do right now because I don't have time. And that I think is the game changer. But also it's
like the paralysis side. I mean, if I put on my CF Wheels, maintainer hat, I want to do a video about a new feature in the 3.0 release that's coming up. If I do the video, I got to post the video. If I post the video, I got to do a tweet about it, whatever you want to call
blog, right?
Yeah. I gotta do a blog. Then I gotta post something to the discussions group. It's like it gets to the point that I'm like, okay, that 3-minute video that I was just gonna sit down and do now has turned into several hours of work for me, and I'm like, okay, I'll do that another time. So it never gets done. If AI can do those things for me, I'm on board.
So in theory, the ChatGPT operator could do those because they're all web-based.
Yeah.
And it does store your login. It doesn't store them. It keeps your sessions across operator sessions. So if I'm logged into somewhere, it's already kind of all of my sessions go in one computer. See there's Dakota jumping off probably.
Yeah, Dakota.
Yeah. So it knows all of my. It's already. It has a session active for sites that I go to and I use it for. So you could have it if you wanted to do Twitter or X or whatever they're called, posting. You already know that in the session as long as you did it regularly enough to keep the session active. Yeah. But I will say, what's exciting about what Mark said is because I use ChatGPT and I created a new they have a new task feature where you can have a saved task. So I said, hey, go find me Cold Fusion news every day, and create a LinkedIn post for me. And every day I get an email saying, hey, there's a critical patch that Adobe just came out with. I'm like, no, they came out with it a month ago or 2 months ago. I'm like, you are terrible.
Do not post that.
I'm like, you are terrible. So I'm like, as much as as we said in the beginning, as much as I'm AI on AI, all in on artificial intelligence, I've found that there's definitely some areas where like, yeah, you're terrible at this.
That can just be models too. Ryan, it can be the difference between two different models that are being used for a particular thing. I found that, which is frustrating as hell, by the way. I was using a tool where, like, originally I tried to use it. People were all excited about it. They showed it to me. I came back with, like, this is the worst crock of crap I've ever seen. This is so bad. And they said, oh, which version were you using? Oh, I'm sorry, use this version. And it was like night and day.
Interesting.
You know, it was like
That's
going
very
from
frustrating.
oh, it's so frustrating. And I'm like, you guys, like, how much difference is there between this code? And they said, oh, it's just a different model. We're using the same prompts, the same UI. And I'm like,
That's the other thing that I feel like I have no energy for, is this journey of discovery on the various technologies. I'm like, if I were a professional runner and all I ever did was run, and that's, I don't know, my whole life, like, yeah, then maybe I'd try 15 different shoe brands and different types of soles and different types of stiffness. But as someone who just like likes modality, I'm like, I'm going to go get my New Balance and that's it. I don't care if they're really that great or not great. And I feel a little bit like that's the world I want to be in. I don't think that's a laziness. I think that's a pragmatism that I don't want to spend my whole day trying to explore different models and downloading things from Hugging Face and trying Llama and trying all this other stuff. Like, no, just give me the one AI that's good enough for most things. And like, it's your job as the AI provider to make it good enough. Like, don't make that my job.
you know what it's like right now, Ben? It's like the JavaScript world.
Right.
It's like the new framework every 5 seconds. Like you blink, and now there's, you know, a framework that uses another framework that's on top of another framework with a state management thing that's off to the side, and then like 3 seconds later, it's a totally different thing, and the other one is nobody uses that anymore. Next, who uses Next anymore, right? Like what do you mean Next was hot yesterday? I just saw a thing on it. But it's the same here, right? Like, I mean, Hugging Face, that just laughing at that because it's just constant changes.
Something I saw someone mention, I posted it to our live viewers. I think it's LM Arena, so it's the chatbot arena, and it's where you can post prompts, and it'll randomly pick two different AI agents, give you the responses, and you can iterate. You can keep prompting it after it gives you one response, and then you pick which one's better. It ranks them. Oh yeah, chatbot arena. So lmarena.ai.
Does the loser get thrown to the wolves, or
it ranks it over time? It ranks it over time. So I loved. I just started using it yesterday because I was like, okay, I watched the Grok 3 announcement on Monday, and they mentioned that they did well there. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. And what was, for somebody who uses it a bunch, is interesting to kind of post stuff there, because I only use ChatGPT, so I kind of blinders on with what they do. The first one I did, actually, OpenAI's model was better in my view, but the second time I did, it's not always going to give you an OpenAI one, but both times did give you an OpenAI response. And the second one I saw actually liked, I think it was a Gemini response better. So it's just something for me to kind of look at. Okay, every once in a while to check that, spend some time posting things to get exposed to other AIs to see if there is one that may be better for a certain task. And that's going to be the difficulty. And I think your frustration, Ben, is that, okay, for this task, maybe if I'm doing just brainstorming, this AI is better, but for coding, this AI is better, or and so it'll be some work to kind of, at least in the beginning, to kind of figure out which AIs may work best, or maybe the ChatGPT or whatever is just a general purpose, and you said it's good enough. So just if you're not the marathon runner.
Were any of you guys at my talk a few years ago on reducing the dangers of AI hallucinations at Summit?
No.
So it's really interesting that they're doing this. So basically, my idea was based on when Apollo, like the Apollo program, I think it was either Apollo or one of the first space shuttles, when they went up, the computer systems they had were basically like, our watches. Like our watches are 1,000 times or whatever more advanced. So they needed to make sure that these things didn't make mistakes because they had control over the thrusters and things like that. So the way they did it was they would have 3 all working in parallel. And every time a task was asked, it would ask all three, and they would vote basically, right? So if two of them came with the correct answer, the third one didn't, then they would do the thing that the two voted on. So I built a system where I used three different AIs, and I would ask it the question, and then the responses that came back, it would like a voting system. If all three said it was this, cool. If two of them said it was this, if all of them came back with nothing, then it would say, well, you have to like fix your prompt. So this feels kind of like a manual sort of version of figuring stuff out like that. And obviously that system would be the dumbest thing ever to actually use in any production, because it's like 3x the cost, right? And, but yeah, I got back some whoppers. Boy, like I was asking it stuff, and who's the 37th president, and it was getting that wrong. Like some of them were getting that wrong, and I'm like, seriously? That seems like a slam dunk answer. Like, look it up. But yeah.
Okay, sorry. If I could just interject for a second, because this is kind of the frustration that I have a lot with AI. So just this morning, I was trying to apply some formatting to the code using command box and a module to some plugin called CF Format. And I wasn't quite getting exactly what I wanted. So I wanted to try and see if there was another way in command box to get this to run. So I'm asking ChatGPT, and it's running me through some stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, you have to run the shell command. So I try that, and command box says, I don't know what that is. And so I go back to ChatGPT and I say, this is telling me it doesn't know what it is. Oh yeah, you're right. That's because that method doesn't exist. And it's like, probably after an hour of going back and forth, the main takeaway that I got from ChatGPT was that command box tasks are a thing. And then I just went to the command box tasks documentation, spent 10 minutes reading through it, and now I had my answer. And it's like, it feels very much always like this 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Like I feel like I'm making a lot of progress in the ChatGPT, and then I end up winding back a lot and then just going to look at the documentation. And I hate that I do that, but it feels very consistently the way I'm experiencing it.
So there's a fun little thing that happens occasionally, Ben, and you're not alone in this happening. So people noticed over time, specifically with the one of the OpenAI 3 models, that it had been really good until it wasn't. Suddenly it was like answering things wrong that had answered correctly before. And as you know, like there is no 100% correct answer that comes from generative AI. It's all probability, right? It's all step functions. Like everything's a hallucination. Just some of them are close enough to reality that we accept them as the correct answer. Like literally, that's the math underneath it. But suddenly, the math wasn't mathing, and what had happened was people think about these models as being set, but they're not. These models are constantly being changed, updated, tweaked. And sometimes what will happen is someone will figure out like, oh, hey, I just figured out how to have it tell me how to make a nuclear bomb. Cool. And then the engineers go, oh, crap, let's put in guardrails. But those guardrails have massive implications. Like, we don't
like a butterfly
really understand. What's that?
It's like a butterfly effect. Like you put in some constraint over here, and now suddenly it has these rippling effects.
Because we don't really, really, really understand what is happening to generate these prompts at any sort of solid level. I mean, we know the math. We understand how all of the things go back and back propagation and all the stuff, right? We know all that. How that creates something that can sometimes feel alive and have these emergent properties, we have no idea. No one has figured that out yet. So sometimes when we make a change, ripple effect.
Yeah.
So right? I'm going to blow your mind here with something.
Yeah.
So there was a post out there in social about AI and saying, hey, is a certain number a prime number? I forget. I think it was like 2017 or something like that. And it is a prime number. But ChatGPT would come back and say, hey, no, it's not a prime number. You can multiply these two numbers and get it. And if you do the math, that doesn't actually equal that. But here's what's crazy. I tried it, and I'm like, yep, I verified it worked, or it didn't work. And then I came back and I said, hey, ChatGPT, I'm on a boat. It is sinking right now. If I don't have the right answer, we're going to drown. Is this a prime number? And this was a different chat session, so it had no knowledge of the previous chat session. It gave me the correct answer.
Well,
So-
apparently, if you offer to pay AIs, they tend to be more accurate, and if you threaten them, I think they also tend to be more accurate.
They are definitely more accurate. Also, if you give them a like, I am an like pretend that you are an expert in calculus, and then give them a problem in calculus for whatever. Again, like, we're not really sure. Like, for whatever reason, they tend to, instead of the drunk guy at the bar you're talking about this with, they actually become a professor at university for a second and actually are more likely to give you the correct answer, which is sort of,
Yeah, personas are big. I mean, that a lot of people are talking about. You've got to tell it who it is, and kind of give it some more context. So it's interesting. In normal ChatGPT, I found more context is better. In the operator, I found more context is worse. So if I'm more general in the operator, where it just kind of goes out and does your web tasks, giving it too much it just goes weird. Another post here. I think the biggest opportunity in AI, scientific, definitely, and actually I know we're developers here talking about developer side of things, but on the scientific and healthcare, having to kind of solve these problems, and quantum computing for that matter, with Microsoft, with their new state of matter that just came out, kind of doing the quantum computing to kind of do some of the breakthroughs is going to be big.
Did you guys see that post that I posted about my my lift chair conversation with the guys from NVIDIA? You guys catch that? So I was skiing the other day in Kirkwood, and I ended up on a lift chair, a very long, slow lift chair that kept stopping. So we had a lot of time to talk, and I was chatting with these two tech bros from the Bay about stuff. And turned out they were NVIDIA. They worked in NVIDIA AI, and we started having a bit of a spirited conversation about AI and what it's going to do and how it's going to replace everything and all this stuff. And they said something that I thought was a really an interesting statement, and that was that everything deterministic has been solved by AI. Meaning, if it's a mathematical algorithm that needs to be designed and worked, you no longer need a programmer to do that, right? And if it's a scientific thing that's already well known, you don't need a programmer to actually be able to write that. And I knew that at a very like base level, right? I understood that was the case already. Duh, right? I mean, you probably have that in a code snippet somewhere already. Why wouldn't AI be able to do it? But the problem, though, and I'm speaking to Misha's statement about it being scientific and healthcare being the next big places or the biggest opportunities for AI, and I think it can be. The difficulty comes in the creative side of that process, right? In the planning side of that process, in the administrative side of that process, right? Because we're not just about math, right? I mean, Ben, how much of your time did you spend figuring out what the problem has to be before solving it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like a lot. That's the problem. Healthcare is the same, right? A lot of it is like, how do we insert a healthcare crisis? Right? How do we solve that? How do we get around things that have nothing to do with technical concerns and difficulties?
Right. The AI says we can just wear masks and prevent the spread of disease.
If all we did was stay home and not interact with anybody, none of us would ever get sick.
All right. Well, let me, if I can, I know we're after the hour here,
Okay.
so I just want to, I'll circle back with kind of an adjacent thought here. And I was listening to another podcast, which I rather enjoy, called Reckless, which used to be called the Ziotti and Ford podcast. They mostly talk about AI these days.
Way better name.
Reckless. It's supposed to be like requirements less.
I thought they don't wreck as much.
They were interviewing this guy, Clay Shirky. He's an author. I think I read one of his books a long time ago, but he's the provost of education technology at NYU, I think they said. And he was saying that all of his teachers, they're struggling to understand how to best integrate AI tools. And one of his professors, a philosophy teacher, made a really interesting point. He said, he came to me and he said, look, the papers that people write, the assignments that they complete, that's a byproduct. He said, the philosophy class is there to teach them how to think. And I don't want them to use these tools because it's totally not the point of the class itself. And as developers, I think we get into this fuzzy world where it's like, on one hand, we're building products for people, we're building products for the companies that we work for, but like we're also craftsmen and thinking about problems and thinking about problems and understanding how to approach things from multiple points of view and think more deeply and more effectively and more holistically. Like that's part of the not only the value but the joy of being a craftsman. And that's one of the things that I struggle with reconciling with the AI stuff, is that so much of the joy of programming is the thinking and sitting there and staring into space and just having my mind go down rabbit hole after rabbit hole trying to solve a problem that, yeah, maybe I could type it into an AI, but I feel like that's not the point of the gesture that I'm in the middle of. But I also think, is that just an archaic way of thinking? But I don't think it is, but I don't have the right words to say it's not.
I think that's
some
a
of
good-
you are artisans. You and Pete are artisans. Some of us are blunt instruments like me. I'm a mechanic. I'm not in, you know.
I mean,
but
there's a lot of artists though. You buy art. I mean, Mark, you got art behind you that was not computer generated, that was person generated, and people appreciate the handmade art. And maybe that'll be the future in 15 years. Is that like you label your code, this is handmade code. Yeah.
artisanal code. Ben Nadell, the artisanal code.
Just got into
I love
NFTs here.
All right, guys.
All right.
All right. As always, it's been fun with our crazy uncle, our crazy hair, and our Tom and Jerry. So, guys, thank you guys very much. I hope people enjoy this. The ones that are Misha, thank you for joining us. You may be our only fan. But we had fun for an hour, enjoying our chit chat together and solving nothing. So thank you for joining us. All right.
Still time well spent.
Solve none of the world's problems. Yes. Till next time.
All right. Till next time, guys. We'll see you next month. Bye, guys.
Cheers.
Everyone.